All right, how's everybody doing? Hotep, hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. Hope everybody's doing well. It is Monday, March 11th, 2019, and we are live. I just finished doing the African History Network show on 9:10 a.m. the Super Station, so many of you all watched that. And, we ran out of time. I was talking about R. Kelly. R. Kelly breaks his silence. I have been assassinated. We were talking about the interview that R. Kelly did with Gayle King. I talked a little bit about R. Kelly's previous attorney from the 2008 case, who said that R. Kelly was guilty of child pornography in 2008, things like this. His name is Ed Denson, 77 years old, suffering from cancer. And I was looking at some of the comments. We had a lot of people who watched the Facebook Live broadcast. It's been viewed over 5,000 times right now. And it's on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, the African History Network. And everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also, okay? So I was looking at some of the comments, right? And you always get the people who say, well, what about the white men that rape women and molest girls? What about Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein? What about Woody Allen? What about Elvis Presley marrying Priscilla Presley when she was 14 years old? Things like this. What are documentaries? Well, if you know how to use Google, there are documentaries basically on all these people. Okay, and we posted something about that. One of our followers posted some information about various documentaries that have been done on all these white men. Okay, but the real question that I want to focus on, because see, what happens is when things like this take place, we get into the whataboutism, and people really don't care when African American women and girls are molested. People really don't care when African American women and girls are sexually abused, okay? And we have to understand that you only protect what you respect. You only protect what you respect, okay? So the question, what I want to talk about briefly here is, do Black lives only matter when they are violated by white people? Do Black lives only matter when they are violated by white people? Right? If R. Kelly were white and he was allegedly doing to African American girls and women, if he was white doing this allegedly to African American girls and women, would African Americans be giving him a pass? Would they be saying, would they be saying throw the book at him, put him up underneath the jail, or would they be giving him a pass and saying, oh, you trying to convict him without a trial? Okay. Now, nobody is saying that R. Kelly should not have a trial, but some of us know how to read. Some of us know how to do research. Some of us know when people are lying. Some of us understand a pimp mentality, understand how brainwashing works. Okay. And see, this is a very, very important question. Okay. Everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Okay. And we'll put this on our YouTube channel also. This is a very, very important question. Do Black lives only matter when they are violated by white people? Okay, if R. Kelly was allegedly violating Black girls and women, will Black people still defend him or no? So if we look at, for instance, let's look at this. All right, how's everybody doing? If you go back and look at Dylan Roth, okay, remember Dylan Roth, June of 2015, he allegedly, he shot and killed 9 African Americans at Mother Emanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. Okay, we all remember that, right? And then they found his racist manifesto, his white supremacist manifesto. They they saw pictures of him that he took of himself with the Confederate battle flag and things like this. He's a white supremacist, right? If Dylan Roth were having sex with 13 to 17-year-old African-American girls and videotaping it and allegedly forcing them to do all types of things like this, if he was brainwashing them allegedly, all the allegations against R. Kelly, if Dylan Roth was doing this, would Black people be defending him? Or would they say throw the book at him? So we have to ask ourselves this question: do our lives only matter when they're violated by white people? Okay. If we look at Jasmine Barnes was 7 years old. Just a couple months ago, everybody's talking about Jasmine Barnes, right? 7-year-old African American girl, shot and killed. It was a tragedy. Uh, Headlines everywhere, social media posts, okay, everywhere. News One, if we look here, news1.com has the article. We look at Washington Post. I have a lot of stuff bookmarked. I have thousands of articles bookmarked. Second man arrested in killing a 7-year-old Jasmine Barnes. So when African Americans thought a white man shot and killed Jasmine Barnes, there were press conferences, there are thousands of social media posts, there are numerous articles being written about her. People were outraged. Okay. Then when we find out that allegedly it was an African American man who shot and killed her, and he was I think he's early 20s, I think 21, something like that. When we find out allegedly it's an African American man who shot and killed her, then what happened to all the outrage over Jasmine Barnes? What happened to all the press conferences? You notice now they don't even talk about Jasmine Barnes. You don't see the articles on social media. You don't see the social media posts, hashtag Jasmine, justice for Jasmine, all this stuff. What happened to her? She's still dead. Her family still is devastated. They don't have their 7-year-old daughter. Her siblings still don't have her sister. So, and you look over about a week period of time, once we found out allegedly an African American man did it, just everything just disappeared. So do our lives only matter when they're violated by white people? See, this is something very serious that we have to question. And you only protect what you respect. You only protect what you respect. And as Malcolm X said, he talked about how Black women are the most disrespected women in this country. The Black woman is the most disrespected woman in this country. All right. African-American business owners, they post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast, and email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. We'll let you know how to advertise with the African History Network as well. So, you know, on the Sunday, March 10th show, we were celebrating our 9th year anniversary of broadcasting the African History Network show. So I've been doing that show for 9 years. We have over 900 audio podcasts of our show. And you can visit our website, africanhistorynetwork.com, africanhistorynetwork.com. You can listen to the audio podcast there. They're free, over 900. We've interviewed some of everybody, a lot of African-centered scholars, from Dr. Francis Cress Wilson to Dr. Richard King, Professor Kaba Kamene, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Professor James Small, Dr. Raketi Amin. I mean, some of everybody I've interviewed, all right? So when so Tony on Facebook asks, how is R. Kelly's case relevant to our community? Tony, do you care about protecting Black women from sexual predators, or are you a troll? Do you care about protecting Black women from sexual predators, or are you just a troll here that doesn't have anything better to do? Look at the article. I shared this on the show tonight. Look at the article from WXYZ.com, okay? And it's called Surviving R. Kelly Sheds Light on Bigger Issue. Black women raped at higher rates but report less, okay? Black women raped at higher rates but report less. And this is something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. Now, African-American women, 6 out of 10 are sexually molested by the time they're 18 years old. Unfortunately, a lot of times the molester is another African-American man. Now, this is not an attack on African-American men, because if they molest our women and our girls, they should go to prison. They need psychological help, but they should be held accountable. If it was a white man molesting our girls, we would want him to be held accountable. So what this really boils down to is a lack of respect for Black women. That's what this really boils down to. Unless maybe it happens to your sister or your daughter or your niece, then you will want consequences. You will want consequences and repercussions then. If it's somebody else's, then you want to point the finger. You want to talk about, oh, the white priest molesting white boys and white teenagers. Well, Nobody shifts the blame to their parents. Nobody shifts the blame to the white teenagers. The white teenagers aren't blamed, and the white boys aren't blamed for being molested because they're allowed to be the victim. They're allowed to be in a protected class. So people say, oh, the predator, see, they know who was wrong. The predator needs to be held accountable, okay? But when it comes to African-American girls and African-American women, many people don't care when they're sexually abused. And in the case of R. Kelly, I'm gonna be quite honest with you right now. If R. Kelly didn't make a lot of black women's panties wet, they'll be talking about throwing the book at him. I'm gonna be quite honest with you. If R. Kelly didn't make a lot of black women's panties wet, this is why a lot of them are defending him. Because if R. Kelly was just the average brother from the south side of Chicago, if he couldn't sing, he couldn't write music, he didn't write Step in the Name of Love, okay? He didn't write This Is the Remix to Ignition, Hot and Fresh Out the Kitchen, okay? If he couldn't do none of that, he couldn't play ball, he couldn't act, he couldn't rap, he's just the average brother from the south side of Chicago, doing this allegedly to African-American girls and women, they'll be talking about throwing a book at him. Okay, but because he is so influential in a lot of African Americans' lives, especially African American women, okay, now they want to turn the other cheek. They don't want him to be held accountable. He needs psychological help because he was molested when he was a child, allegedly by his older sister, Teresa. He needs psychological help, but he needs to be held accountable. But also people around him are accomplices. They need to be held accountable also. I read an article from rollingout.com that talked about how a federal investigation is being launched into the people around R. Kelly who may be involved in violation of the Mann Act, which deals with human trafficking and white slavery, things like this, the Mann Act, M-A-N-N, okay? So we'll go to some more of your comments here. Share this broadcast on your Facebook page, invite your friends to tune in. But see, you only protect what you respect, okay? We're going to post a link to this article here. It's very important everybody checks this out and watches the video inside of it. This is from WXYZ.com, Channel 7 in Detroit. Surviving R. Kelly sheds light on bigger issue. Black women raped at higher rates, but report less, okay? And then also, let's see, email us at customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. African-American business owners will let you know how to advertise with the African History Network. And if you like this type of information we put out, we've been doing this, we've been doing the radio show 9 years. We've had the Facebook fan page here since 2010 or 2009, one of them, can't remember. I think 2010, early January 2010. You can donate to the African History Network also. You help support the research that we do. PayPal.me/the AHN show, PayPal.me/the AHN show. Or go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, click on the yellow donate button if you don't have a PayPal account. And that helps us to keep doing the research, finance the African History Network show, pay the bills, etc., pay for ink cartridges, paper, all that stuff, okay? And we also have my DVD lectures there at our website as well. Okay, so we've got Damon. How you doing, Damon? Lashana, he's not going to get a fair trial. What makes you think he won't get a fair trial? He can still get a fair trial. What makes you think he won't get a fair trial? I don't understand that. What makes you think he won't get a fair trial? So, the problem is that there's a whole lot of evidence against him. That's the problem. Bryce said, "You're fine. The one who speaks does not know. Just listen, my friend." Replying to Tony. Sammy, often the racial abuse was swept under the rug or kept a secret in the family. Basically, elders knew but remained silent. So what happens is, see, the sexual abuse, a lot of the sexual abuse in the African-American community ties back to slavery. And this is what a lot of people don't want to deal with. In Hidden Colors 4, the documentary Hidden Colors 4, they talked about this. And during slavery, African-American women and girls were sexually abused, but also African-American men and boys were as well. But it's going to happen more so largely with African-American women and girls. And then after slavery ends, right, we never got counseling for that. And usually hurt people hurt people. So you're going to have this continue, and you're going to have white men still sexually molesting and raping African-American girls and women. And we're gonna have this in our family. It gets swept under the rug. There's shame surrounding it, And in a lot of our families, we knew it was going on, but they said don't say anything, or if you say something, they're going to take him to jail, and he's bringing in a paycheck and different things like this, right? And then also there's an aversion in the African American community from getting psychological help, from getting therapy for a number of different reasons. One of them has to do with the medical experiments that have been done on African Americans going back throughout history. Okay, and long before the Tuskegee experiment, which started about 1933, 1934, and was supposed to last between 6 to 9 months and ended up lasting 40 years. We can go back to Dr. J. Marion Sims, who's known as the father of modern gynecology, who was doing horrific surgeries and experiments on enslaved African American women. Okay, and a lot of the gynecological instruments that are being used today is based upon technology he created and experiments he did on African American women. So this goes on generation after generation, and the proper psychological help and therapy oftentimes is not given, and there's a shame in the family. Okay, and Jamila talked about post-traumatic slave syndrome. Yeah, Dr. Joy DeGroot. Yeah, post-traumatic slave syndrome. I have a book around here somewhere. Post-traumatic slave syndrome, Dr. Joy DeGroot. So if we look at the article from WXYZ.com, they picked up the story from their Cleveland affiliate, and they interviewed Teresa Stafford of the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center. Okay, and Teresa Stafford watched the 3-part series Surviving R. Kelly, and she said maybe they stayed in silence because they didn't feel like they had a way out. And if you watch that documentary, they talk about how nobody really cares when African American girls are sexually abused. Okay, nobody really cares when this takes place. And oftentimes African American women are victimized for their own sexual abuse as well. Now, what do you think would have happened to R. Kelly if he was doing this to white girls? What do you think would have happened to R. Kelly if he was allegedly outside of a predominantly white high school talking to 15 and 16-year-old girls? What do you think would have happened if these were white girls allegedly he was doing this to? He would have been in prison a long time ago. Everybody knows it. Okay? Everybody knows he would have been in prison a long time ago. Now, Teresa Stafford at the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center watched a 3-part series and says the women's stories are all too familiar. She said, quote, "We actually see a lot of young ladies that have been groomed into believing that somebody loves and cares for them, and then the person is actually taking advantage of them and victimizing them and causing harm to them." Okay, and she said that she says this is especially true within the Black community. She said, quote, "We have to get into a point in our society where we feel that Black girls deserve the treatment and protection of other young girls in our community. We have to get into a point in our society where we feel that African American girls, Black girls, deserve the same treatment and protection of other young girls in our community." Well, what we have to understand is you only protect what you respect. You only protect what you respect. You can't have negative corporate control hip hop that dehumanizes African American women, calls them every other name except a child of God, shows them half naked in music videos, objectifies their body parts, and then think that we're going to respect them. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't respect them, but I'm trying to get us to understand the programming. This is why we have to take our minds back. This is why African history and culture gives us our VIPs. It gives us our values, our interests, and our principles. And it gives us a cultural paradigm that we see reality through. So when Malcolm talks about the Black woman being the most disrespected woman in this country, he's correct. And there's a history behind this. But we have to be smarter than that and understand that it's the African woman that's the mother of civilization, gave birth to the world, and put her on a pedestal like white women are put on a pedestal. So Teresa Stafford says 60% of African American girls are sexually abused by the time they turn 18 years old. She said that's a number that's extremely high, higher than any of their counterparts. She also went on to say that 1 in 15 African American women actually report the abuse. Only 1 in 15 African American women actually report the abuse. And what happens is when you study this, there's a reluctance to come forward. Number one, there's a reluctance to tell on an African American man, because then it gets into, oh, why are you trying to bring the brother down? Or you're lying, you're just making this up. They're more likely to be victimized. What were you wearing? What did you do? Did you lead him on? Things like this. And then also, then because of stereotypes of African American women's sexuality being hypersexualized over sex, and see, with the negative corporate control hip hop videos, they oftentimes show a hypersexualized African American woman. So when you go study the history of slavery in this country, the belief was really that you couldn't rape a black woman. She's a piece of property. They didn't have those rights to be protected. Then after slavery ends, you still have the same thing. The mindset was you can't rape a black woman. You know, she likes it. She's hypersexualized. So African American women historically have not been put into a protected class like white women and white girls have. Even though male chauvinism existed, still white men put their women on a pedestal. Even though they're still abusing them, they're still on a high pedestal. And if you think they're not, then go study the history of lynchings in this country. Go study the history of lynchings in this country. Because a lot of the lynchings that took place in this country against African-American men had to do with white women. And it's a white domestic terror, is white domestic terrorism, but it was also used to put a fear in African-American men to keep them away from white women. And a lot of the lynchings took place because of it was said that this black man either raped a white woman, looked at a white woman, smiled at a white woman, was having sex with a white woman. A lot of those instances of actual sexual intercourse between black men and white women, a lot of those were actually consensual. And this is what Ida B. Wells found out when after the Moss store murders, the People's Grocery Store in Memphis, Tennessee, March 9th, 1892. Tom Moss was a friend of hers, and he was killed. We were going to talk about this Sunday night, but ran out of time. But I've talked about this before. Tom Moss was a friend of hers, and he was a postal carrier, and he owned a grocery store, right? And the Equal Justice Initiative has an article about this. We'll bring this up. This is because this is an example of this, and I've researched Ida B. Wells. And what happened was, this is how Ida B. Wells actually got involved in the anti-lynching campaign. Okay. So what happened was, Tom Moss and two of his friends, they're going to be lynched. Okay. There was a white grocery store owner who was jealous that Tom Moss's store was taking away a lot of his black customers. So he sends some off-duty deputy sheriffs who are white to trash his store. And Tom Moss is there with a couple of his friends. And they fight back and shoot back, okay? And what happens is they didn't know that these were off-duty sheriff deputies. And so they're going to be arrested, and, they're taken out of jail one night, and they're lynched. Okay, they're shot and killed. So Ida B. Wells, first of all, African Americans in Memphis, Tennessee are furious behind this because they know what happened. And they're going to, Ida B. Wells writes articles about this. And she talks about something to the effect of basically dealing with how white men feel threatened because of consensual sex between white women and black men. But she starts to do research on lynchings, and she finds out that a lot of the lynchings were because of consensual sex between African American men and women. I mean, African American men and white women. All right, I'm trying to pull up the article from the Equal Justice Initiative because they had an article dealing with this. Okay, yeah, because the link I had wasn't working for some reason. So let's look at this quickly here. Also, let's see, I think blackpast.org has an article about this as well. Blackpast.org, which one is this? Oh, and blackden.com has an article also dealing with this as well. The Moss Store murders, the incident that inspired Ida B. Wells' anti-lynching crusade. Some of you have heard me talk about this before. Well, if we look at the article from Equal Justice Initiative, where it? Let's see, let's go back to March 9th. Damn, they don't make it easy for you to find this stuff. Okay, 3 black grocers lynched in Memphis, Tennessee. 3 black grocers lynched in Memphis, Tennessee. Okay, this deals with the Moss Store murders. So on March 9th, 1892, a white mob stormed the Memphis jail, seized 3 black men held inside, and brutally lynched them without trial. Okay, earlier that year, these same black men, Thomas Moss, M-O-S-S, Calvin McDowell, and William Henry Stewart, opened the People's Grocery Company in Memphis, Tennessee. Located across the street from a white-owned grocery store, they had previously had a monopoly in the local black community. The men's new business reduced the white store's profit. The venture also threatened the racial order by forcing white businessmen to compete economically with black businessmen. So oftentimes, so this is after the Civil War ends. Civil War officially ends June 2nd, 1865. And then you're going to have the ratification of the 13th Amendment, December 6, 1865. It's adopted December 18th, 1865. December 24th, 1865, the Ku Klux Klan is founded in Pulaski, Tennessee. Okay, and then you have 1865 to 1877, the Reconstruction era. African Americans are going to make some types of advancements. You have about 22 African Americans in Congress. We're going to acquire land, things like this. Then the Union troops, with the Compromise of 1877, the Union troops are removed out of the South that were enforcing to some extent the rights of African Americans. And then you're going to have the increase in terrorism against African Americans. And you have Plessy versus Ferguson, Supreme Court case of 1896, which solidifies Jim Crow laws, okay, which was a violation of the U.S. Constitution. And that's 1896, right? So this is 1892. This is 4 years before that. Okay, so in the midst of this tension, a small fight between African American and white children grew into a larger conflict between African American men and white men in the area. Afterwards, some white men accused the People's Grocery Store of being a meeting place for black men planning an attack on white residents. This was largely a pretext to target the store for destruction, and the grocery owners and other black men gathered with arms to defend the store against attack. So you also have to understand, during this period of time, African Americans are armed. Majority of us live in the South. This is before the Great Migration. The Great Migration is basically 1915 to 1970. 1915, 50th year anniversary of the Civil War ending. 1915, the movie The Birth of a Nation comes out, February 8th, 1915. The first month that is out is called The Klansman, because the movie was based upon a novel by a man named Thomas Dixon called The Klansman, which rejuvenated the Ku Klux Klan and glorified the Ku Klux Klan. 1915 was also the second year of World War I, which was 1914 to 1918, and the U.S. gets involved basically in World War I in 1917. But 1915 marks the beginning of also the Great Migration. So at this time, 90% of African Americans live in the South, okay? So, and I'm just giving you this background information so we could put things in historical perspective. And you have rampant lynchings that are taking place across the country at this time as well. Okay, so this was largely a pretext to target the store for destruction, and the grocery store owners and other black men gathered with arms to defend the store against attack. And what's going to take place is you're going, after the Civil War ends, many African Americans are going to own guns because we live in the South. Many of us are farmers. We have to be able to protect our land from animals who are predators coming onto your land, trying to kill your livestock, things like this. And also we go hunting. So you're going to, so because because most of us lived in the South, and because many of us lived on farms, okay? So if we look at by 1910, we acquired about 15 million acres of land or so. 1920, we got about 920,000 African-American farmers, 925,000 African-American farmers, something like that. We own about 920,000 African-American farms by about 1920. Okay, we're going to own somewhere around 15 million acres of land. Okay, so the other thing that happens is because of the Civil War, you're going to have about almost 200,000 African-American men who go fight in the Civil War. And we learn how to use guns, because during slavery, most of us didn't know how to use guns because they didn't let us have guns. You're going to have a few of us that learn how to use guns during slavery, but most of us didn't know how to use guns during slavery. When African-American men go serve in the Civil War, you have about 200,000 of us serving the Civil War. We learn how to use guns. We learn how to shoot. We learn how to fight. So then you're going to have a lot of us who are trained right after the Civil War ends also. So because we're living in the South, and also we have to protect ourselves from white domestic terrorist groups like the Ku Klux Klan, the Black Legion, the Knights of the White Camellia, all these other groups. So we had to arm ourselves to be able to protect ourselves. Okay, so these brothers were armed. They're in Memphis, Tennessee. These brothers were armed. So when the white mob attacked the store one evening soon after, shots were exchanged and 3 white men were wounded. Okay, these were actually deputy sheriffs who the white store owner sent to trash the black man's store. Okay, but the brothers who were there didn't know that these were deputy sheriffs. They were off duty and not union. They didn't know they were deputy sheriffs. So Mr. Moss, Mr. McDowell, and Mr. Stewart were quickly arrested, and sensational newspaper reports published the next day fanned the flames of racial outrage. The lynching came soon after. In his last words before death, Thomas Moss reportedly declared, they asked him, before they killed him, they asked him, is there anything that you want to say? He said, quote, "Tell my people to go west. There's no justice for them here," end quote. So he's telling them to go out west, okay? Because you had a lot of us going out west, even before the Great Migration started in 1915. You have a lot of us going out west into the new territories that were out west, okay? And if you watch the movie Buck and the Preacher, which stars Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte and Ruby Dee, and it takes place during Reconstruction, okay, post-Civil War, during Reconstruction. And you have former slaves on a wagon train going out west seeking a better way of life. Okay, so there's a lot of history here. So Ida B. Wells at this time, 1892, was a 29-year-old African-American school teacher and journalist living in Memphis, Tennessee. And she was a friend of the 3 men murdered and was deeply impacted by their deaths. She published an editorial echoing Tom Moss's last words and urging local Black residents to, quote, "save our money and leave a town which will neither protect our lives and property nor give us a fair trial in the courts, but take us out and murders us in cold blood when accused by white persons," end quote. Okay, now more than 6,000 African Americans heeded her call and left Memphis, Tennessee soon after. Okay, because this sister's writing for a newspaper. So this information is going out to us. She also said that every Negro home needed to have a Winchester rifle in it also. She was calling for us to arm ourselves to protect ourselves as well. Now, Ida B. Wells was later forced to leave Memphis, Tennessee for Chicago due to threats on her own life. but she would devote her entire life to documenting and challenging the injustice of lynching through research, writing, speaking, and activism. No one was ever punished for the lynching deaths of Thomas Moss, Calvin McDowell, and William Henry Stewart. They are among at least 20 African-American victims of racial terror lynching killed in Shelby County, Tennessee between 1877 and 1950. Okay, and we okay, so check this out. This is at EJI.org, Equal Justice Initiative, EJI.org. That's Brian Stevenson, Attorney Brian Stevenson. That's his organization. Okay. Yeah, Martell said Buck and the Preacher is a classic movie. Yeah, I watched that recently. I rented it from YouTube. On YouTube, they have where you can rent it for, I think, $2.99, something like that. That's a really good movie, Buck and the Preacher. And also, there's an article from blackden.com about this as well. Moss Store Murders, the tragedy that inspired Ida B. Wells' anti-lynching crusade. Okay, but I was sharing that with you because that ties right into history, and we asked the question, right? Do our lives only matter when they're violated by white people? Okay, now I'm not connecting that to this. We got to this dealing with some history. We got to that topic with Ida B. Wells and the Moss Store Murders, dealing with our history. How you doing, Russell Nips? How you doing? Okay, so let's look at some of your comments. Once again, do black lives only matter when they are violated by white people? If R. Kelly was white, allegedly violating black girls and women, will black people still defend him or no? See, this is a very legitimate question. If Dylan Roth, right, who killed 9 African Americans at African Methodist Mother Emanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church, if Dylan Roth was allegedly doing to African American girls what R. Kelly's allegedly doing to them, will black people be trying to defend Dylan Roth? No, they say throw the book at him. They would say don't take him to Burger King, don't take him to McDonald's, throw the book at him. See, then they would want to protect black girls. But don't black girls who are victimized deserve to be protected when the person who's violating them also looks like them? See, so we need to be consistent in our condemnation also. Same thing goes with Jasmine Barnes, right? Everybody was outraged when they thought a white man shot and killed Jasmine Barnes, 7 years old, but nobody talking about Jasmine Barnes now that we found out allegedly it's an African-American man about 21 years old that shot and killed her. Where's all the outrage now? She's just as dead. Her family doesn't have her. Her siblings don't have their little sister. Where's the outrage now? So we have to be consistent in our condemnation. Yeah, Dylan, his last name is actually pronounced Roth. It's spelled Roof, R-O-O-F, but when you research it, it's actually pronounced Roth. Okay, let's look at some of your comments here. We got Martell, Danny, Sammy. Just for reassurance, I can post my black-owned business. Oh yeah, Benjamin. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can post the name of your African-American-owned business here. Post the name of your African-American-owned business, black business owners, and then also email us at customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise on the audio podcast of our shows. We're on 8 different podcast platforms. We reach thousands of potential customers with each broadcast also. And we'll also take your 30-second to 60-second audio commercial and put it into the audio podcast of our Sunday night show, the African History Network show as well. And if you don't have a commercial, we can record one for you. All right, customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, Dana said disgrace. Maricela said always great information. Majek said Davis, Trina, what? So sad our children don't have a sense of their history. Well, you can share a lot of these articles with them. This is one of the reasons why, I created the African History Network to focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So this is why in 2009, I created the African History Network, started the African History Network radio show March 10th, 2010 on the Harambe Radio Network, then went to the Blog Talk Radio Network, and we still upload our podcast to Blog Talk Radio, and they're are automatically uploaded to a total of 8 different podcast platforms that I know of. I just found out a new podcast platform a couple of days ago, so I thought it was 7, but we're on at least 8 different podcast platforms. Yeah, so this is why I created this, because, you know, Bantu Stephen Biko, one of our great South African freedom fighters, he said that the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed, so we must take our minds back. That's what this is all about, okay? All right. So, and then we just posted a link here in celebration of our 9th year anniversary of the African History Network show. We have a 15 DVD bundle pack of some of 15 of my latest presentations, and that's on sale $100. I think it's regularly $200, something like that. So we just posted a link there. Is the Michael Imhotep 15 DVD bundle pack, I think I called it. So check that out. We just posted the link here. And it's also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Simple thing, we know that we are going to get justice once they caught a black shooter. Martell, I thought you worked with Boyce Watkins. I do work with Boyce Watkins. Boyce is a friend of mine. Why'd you ask that, Martell? But I started the African History Network before I met Boyce Watkins. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, so Mubarak said, simple thing, we know that we are going to get justice once they caught a black shooter. Possibly, but why did the outrage dissipate? Possibly, but why did the outrage dissipate? There were social media posts, there were articles written, press conferences, there was outrage all across social media. Is there a future for black people on this planet? Yeah, there's a future because we're the first people on this planet. We're the first people. There's a future. Absolutely. Now, some of us ain't going to make it. But I mean, there's a future. We have to reclaim our history and culture. Our history and culture gives us our foundation, our values, our interests, and our principles. It gives us a cultural paradigm that we see reality through. Okay? Our self-esteem is attached to our history and culture. Okay? And we have to understand Robin Walker, the great historian Robin Walker, talks about how many of our people suffer from low racial esteem and or low self-esteem. Okay, and this is why many of us use negative terminology to refer to our people. We'll call ourselves the N-words, B's, thoughts, things like this, because many of us have low self-esteem and low racial esteem. And there's studies that show how, especially with our children, how them studying their history and culture, how it has a positive impact on not just their self-esteem, but their academic performance as well. University of Pittsburgh and Harvard University did a joint study back in late 2012 that talked about this. Okay, so this is why, and if you notice that people who have a better understanding of their history and culture, they are less likely to dehumanize themselves and use racial epithets and things like this to describe themselves in their music, etc. And they also go after people that disrespect them in media. Okay, they also go after people that disrespect them, that put out negative information about them as well. They hold people accountable, because when people understand their history, they understand what has happened to them in the past. This is why when you study the Jewish community, right, because they have a better understanding of their Holocaust than we have of our Holocaust, anything that they feel is a slight against them, they attack it because they understand the history of what happened in Nazi Germany and how negative words and labels were put upon them to change the way people thought about them, to then justify their mistreatment, justify their extermination. So this is why they say never forget. Okay, we must reclaim our history and culture. Malcolm X asked the question, you know, who are you? Don't tell me Negro. What were you before the white man named you a Negro? And where were you and what did you have? What language did you speak then? He said, what was your name? He said it couldn't have been Smith or Jones or Bunch or Powell. He said that wasn't your name. They don't have those type of names where you and I came from. He said, what was your name? And why don't you now know what your name was then? Where did it go? Who took it? How did he take it? He said, what happened to your history? What happened to your land? What happened to your culture? He said, what method did the man use to wipe out your history? He said, what method did the man use to make you as dumb as you are right now? So this is why the history, before you can deal with the economics, because wherever the mind goes, the dollars will follow. See, this is why the foundation is history and culture. Foundation is not economics. Dr. Claude Anderson is one of my teachers. And I told him, I said, Doc, I understand your 5-story theory, right? Where you deal with the foundations. He says foundations economics, then you get control of the politics, and you get control of the courts and the police, and you get control of the media, things like this, your education. I understand that. I said, but Dr. Foundation is African history and culture. Because I said, it doesn't matter how much money you have, if that foundation is not in place, you still spend 97% of your dollars with people that don't look like you. We can have so we have a $1.3 trillion economy, but we've largely been taught to hate ourselves, and many people have internalized that because that historical and cultural foundation is not there. We could have a $10 trillion economy, and we could still be spending 97% of our dollars with people that don't look like us if that foundation is not there. Because that gives you your values, your interests, and your principles. Wherever your mind goes, your dollars will follow. And you leverage your economics to enforce your politics. But if you've been taught to hate who you are and love who you can't be, right? You're not going to demand something for your vote. You're not even going to be involved in politics because you don't think your issues are worth being addressed. The reason why many of our people don't fight back is, frankly, many of our people don't think they're worth fighting for because they have internalized the self-hatred. They have internalized that they have no value. So this is why oftentimes it seems like our lives don't have value unless they're violated by somebody white. Okay, Bruce said, I heard you mention about us taking our minds back. One of the first things we have to do is come out of this rhythm thing and learn to stand on our own autonomy and be original, that perfect you, because it's easier to psychologically prime us, track us, condition us when we follow the same trends in this thing called rhythm, okay? We once had a rebuttal about this at Cleveland State University and found out it was one of the biggest tricks given to Black people. In other words, we need to be more individually creative. Individually creative as individuals, or are you talking about African people being individually creative as a group based upon our history and culture? Because individualism is not a benefit to us. All right, Thomas said Ashe, Bruce said true. All right. Okay, guys. So look, share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. Turn on the notification, let you know when we go live. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, and text the word Kemet, KEMET, to 22828. Text the word Kemet, KEMET, to 22828 to subscribe to our email newsletter, or go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and you can sign up for the email newsletter right there. They have the information right on the homepage. At the top of the homepage, it says newsletter. So you can subscribe there as well. And you can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me, me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. And check out the articles we have on our Facebook fan page, also the African History Network. If you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, email me at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. If you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization. And also if you want to advertise with the African History Network as well. Bruce said, love your show. Yeah, and go back and watch the broadcast I did Sunday night, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, March 10th, the African History Network show. It's on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. How you doing, Bobo? It's on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network also. So Martell said, even though having a high IQ is pseudoscience, I would rate you very high, Mike. Keep up the good work. Okay, thanks. All right, thanks. I do a lot of research. So these are just some of the recent articles. I do a lot of research. If you've seen any of my lectures, you know I do a lot of research, right? This is why I say proper documentation ends all conversation. A lot of people like to deal with their opinions and beliefs and things like that. I'm a researcher. I deal with facts and evidence. Okay. PayPal.me, Bobo, paypal.me/the AHN show. We'll post it again. And that's if you have a PayPal account. If you don't have a PayPal account, go to africanhistorynetwork.com, africanhistorynetwork.com, right on the homepage, click on the yellow donate button. You could donate there if you have a PayPal account or not. Okay, we just posted a link again. And then also you go over our DVD lectures as well. We have online courses that are on demand also. So we have those in the bundle pack as well. Okay, this helps to support and finance the African History Network show, helps us keep doing the research because the research, it costs money to do the research, helps us pay the bills, helps finance the African History Network show. This is a lot of work. It's very time consuming. Okay, all right. Let me get some more of your questions here, comments. When is the next one? So Jamila, when is the next one what? Now we do the African History Network show every Sunday night on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF. So when you see me in the radio station studio, every Sunday night, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, you know, do some broadcasts throughout the week here from this studio. So we may be back on later today or so. I'm not sure. I don't know. I have a lot of work to do, so it depends. I appreciate your knowledge and wisdom, sir. Peace and divine right. Okay, thanks. Books to sell, Bobby asked. So I don't sell book. Usually don't sell books. I haven't written any books yet. So I have like 40 of my lectures on DVD. They're all available at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Don't have any books yet. People are asking me to write books, so that's something I need to slow down and do. I've had a lot of people ask me to write books. That's something I need to slow down and do. But you can start if you want. You can start with the our latest bundle pack. It's 15 DVD bundle pack. Some of my latest lectures. You can start there. Now I do write articles. I forgot to tell you that. So I've written about, I don't know, maybe 60 articles. So my articles are at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay, what the hell is this doing? AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So I do write articles. Okay, so you can read. If you go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com and right on the homepage, click on Read Articles by Michael Imhotep. You can read my articles there. I've written a number of articles. When am I coming to DC? I like to see you and be at the lecture. Rashid asks. Okay, if you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, because I don't have any plans to be in DC. Oh, now, okay, so the end of March 30th and March 31st, 2019, I will be in Baltimore. Each year, I'm at the Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo that Malika Temu Cooper puts on. So I'll be back in Baltimore. I was there last year. I'll be back in Baltimore. I forgot where it is. Visit naturalhaircareexpo.com, naturalhaircareexpo.com. And I have to interview Malika probably next Sunday to talk about it. So those in the Baltimore, the DMV area, Baltimore, everybody in that area, I'll be in Baltimore. That's a Saturday and Sunday, March 30th and March 31st. And I'll be doing, so I have a vendor table there, but I do workshops there, okay, as well. Each year I do workshops. So this year, usually I deal with great African women in history, the mothers of civilization. Last year, one day I did great African women in history. The second day I did how to film Black Panther, I dealt with the role of Black women in the film Black Panther. That was the second day. This year, what I'm going to do, and I'm working on this presentation. It's the first time I've ever done this presentation. This year, I'm going to do a workshop dealing with the politics of African American women's hair. And I'm going to deal with this some throughout time, but deal with how our hair historically tied us to our culture. It tied us to our history. You could tell what tribe or nation or culture an African woman was from based upon her hairstyle. And during different periods of time, there were different hairstyles. So a married woman may have one hairstyle. A woman who is single may have a hairstyle. You have ornaments in the hair. The hair was largely tied to culture. Okay, and during slavery on the slave ships, oftentimes, depending upon the European nation that was capturing them, but many times during slavery, the men and the women, their heads would be shaved. Part of it had to do with cutting down on lice, but also had to do with stripping them, separating them from their history and culture. And then we go through periods of time where we try to reclaim that. So some of the things I'm going to deal with in this workshop is how natural hairstyles of African Americans, especially African American women, more so, are under attack. And the way we wear our hair is tied to our culture, and it's also tied to taking our minds back and fighting against white supremacy and racism. So recently there was a story of a African-American female newscaster who, her boss, she was wearing a natural hairstyle, and her boss said that she needed to look like a beauty queen. Well, with her natural hair, she did look like a beauty queen. But he's holding her to a European standard of beauty. So this workshop I'm going to do, it deals with how African-American women are held to a European standard of beauty, which deals with them having to have straight hair so their hair looks like white women's hair, because Europeans are operating based upon this European standard of beauty. And we have to understand that there are other standards of beauty that come from other people's culture. So white women may look fine with their hair a certain way, but African-American women should not have to feel pressure to make their hair look like a white woman's hair for them to be deemed attractive, for them to be deemed beautiful. There's another cultural paradigm that we should be operating out of, okay? So these are some of the things I'm going to deal with in the workshop I'm going to do. I'm going to deal with, I'm still working on the title of it. I'm putting together this presentation. This is the first time I've done this workshop. But see, this is something extremely important. And I'm going to tie in the film Black Panther. How you doing, CC? All right. CC used to do voiceovers for the Empowerment Radio Network. We both used to be on the Empowerment Radio Network. Shout out to Dave Anderson and the Empowerment Radio Network. She said just transcribe them. Yeah, you know, Professor Kaba Kamene told me about a service where you could transcribe your DVDs as well. So I'm looking at that also. It's just time consuming. So this is something I'm working on right now to do this workshop, and I'll probably do the presentation in Detroit here first and record it, so I'll have it on DVD at the to sell in Baltimore at the Natural Hair Care Expo at my vendor table as well. But see, this is one of the reasons why the film Black Panther was so powerful. Because see, in Black Panther, and this is one of the things I'll talk about, I deal with this in my lectures dealing with Black Panther that are on DVD at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and I'll deal with this also in the workshop. In the film Black Panther, because the African women of Wakanda, Wakanda was never colonized, and they were never conquered by Europeans. They were not enslaved. They're operating based upon an African standard of beauty. Okay, so this is why the women of Wakanda all had natural hairstyles, or they were bald. And you're going to see in some African cultures, some of the women are bald as well, and they look beautiful bald also. But because they're operating based upon an African standard of beauty, they didn't have perms, they didn't have straight hair. Okay, and really forcing Black women to straighten their hair to be deemed professional in corporate America. And I used to work in corporate America. Be deemed professional by corporate America, or be deemed acceptable. It's a way of, quote unquote, taming their hair. It's a way of taming and controlling them and controlling their minds and having them acquiesce to a European standard of beauty. Because when sisters have natural hair, especially when they have afros, you know, that's something that looks very powerful. It looks strong. It's a symbol of resistance. It's a symbol of fighting back. If you look at Amara La Negra, who's on Love and Hip Hop Miami, I really don't watch it. I catch a minute here, a minute there. But I've seen interviews that Sister has done on Sister Circle Live on TV One. And I've seen some articles about her. And this is a beautiful, beautiful dark-skinned sister. She's Afro-Latino, #1. And a lot of African Americans don't even understand being Afro-Latino, right? She's Afro-Latino. And you see these pictures of this sister with her natural hair, this big kind of like style, like an afro. It looks so powerful. It's a symbol of resistance, right? And then you see the sister with straight hair. She's still beautiful, but ain't the same thing. It's like your hair has been conquered by a European standard of beauty. Okay, and head wraps, yeah. So I'll deal with head. I'll talk about head wraps some, and I'll talk about how and head wraps or geles that comes out of African culture, because African American women are oftentimes in schools, in high schools, things like this. Our sisters, our daughters are being attacked and ridiculed for wearing geles, for wearing head wraps, which is traditional, comes out of African culture. Okay, so when there are strides that African people make to reclaim our history and culture, there's always a backlash to that. Okay, there's always a concerted effort, a backlash. Some of that comes from our own people who've been brainwashed by white supremacy and racism. Jackie said our hair is our crowning glory. Straighten comb. Yep. And I'll probably talk a little bit about Madam C.J. Walker. I've done a lot of research on Madam C.J. Walker. There's a documentary called $2 in a Dream that came out in 1986, I think it was. And the research on Madam C.J. Walker, they talk about how in that documentary, they had women interviewed who worked with her. That Madam C.J. Walker died in 1919. And they said that they were adamant. They said she was not trying to make Black women's hair look like white women's hair. She was not trying to make them look white. She was just trying to make their hair more manageable, even though it did look like white women's hair. She was just trying to make their hair more manageable. So I'm not attacking her or blaming her. I've done a lot of research on her. But Annie Turnbull Malone was Madam C.J. Walker's mentor, who hired Sarah Breedlove in 1905 and taught her the Black hair care industry. And Sarah Breedlove went on to become Madam C.J. Walker. And it was Annie Turnbull Malone. She was the one who created the Black hair care industry. She's the one who created the hot comb, all this stuff. Now, she didn't create the perm. The perm goes back, the first hair straightener really goes back to, at least in this country, for Black women. Goes back to Garrett A. Morgan, who about 1910 accidentally created a hair straightener. Okay. But all this history is history that we need to know and understand. Okay, let's see. Both of my aunts attended Madam Walker's school, Madam C.J. Walker's school, turbans. Yeah, turbans, head wraps, all this ties into our history. Okay, Jacqueline said. So I'll deal with some of this. So those in the Baltimore area, visit naturalhaircareexpo.com. I think is the website, naturalhaircareexpo.com. I need to get the naturalhaircareexpo.com. I need to get the flyer up at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. I'm still trying to recover from February. Busy February. Is it natural? Yeah, naturalhaircareexpo.com it is. It's a busy February. I'm still trying to get caught up. But if you want me to do a presentation for a group or organization, email me at customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. African History, customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. If you want me to do a presentation for a group or organization. And maybe while I'm there in Baltimore, maybe I can do a lecture there that night. I'm not sure what time this is over with, but let's see. This is Saturday and Sunday. I'm on the website now, BeMoreNaturalInc.com. If you go to naturalhaircareexpo.com, it takes you, it redirects you to the website. And what time is this? March 30th, March 31st, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. both days. Okay. All right. So if those in the DMV area, if you want me to do a presentation that Saturday night or Sunday night, I'll be available. So email me at customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll work out the details, okay? They called it a process, yeah. Garrett A. Morgan created quite a few inventions. And see, when we look at what are called perms, which is short for permanent, when it comes to African-American women, we should call them temporaries, because it's taking your hair and giving it a temporary status. So we call it perm. So we call it a temporary a perm. Okay, because it's taking your hair from its natural state, trying to make it straight, but that's just temporary. So what we call perms, we should really call temps. But we don't understand it. Okay. All right. Okay, guys, look, we have to get out of here. Hey, remember at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the compass of his actions and her actions. Because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Right now, it corrects your own behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.